Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Jeff Bezos is viewed by many as the richest person to have ever walked the earth. However, there are many billionaires and even trillionaires that have come before him. That being said, it can be challenging to estimate the wealth of someone who was born in the 1400s, or someone who owned a kingdom. But using the opinions of several different experts, a pretty clear list can be compiled. Let's talk about the top 5 richest people in history. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you don't miss out on any of our new videos. Let's get right into it. Number 5. John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller. That name should sound familiar to you. The oil tycoon had a fortune of around $400 billion. He founded this Standard Oil company in 1870, which began to skyrocket in value shortly after. At one point in time, Standard Oil Company controlled 90% of the oil in the US. His wealth became so enormous that his fortune was 2% of the national economy. With all his money, Rockefeller owned houses across the US. Most notably, he owned a 40-home room with views of New York City. The home took 6 years to complete and featured collections of Chinese ceramics in 20th century art. Number 4. Akbar I. Akbar I owned a massive empire in the 1500s, and he had quite a fortune, which is estimated to be around $500 billion. Though some estimates say he was worth even more. He worked hard from the moment he took the throne to conquer as much territory as possible, tripling it in size by the end of his rule, known as the Mughal Empire. His reign stretched across India into northern Afghanistan. He was most known for his religious tolerance, which was mostly unheard of at the time. Although he was Muslim, many of his closest advisors and city leaders were Hindu. He took an active role in uniting the two religions and allowing individuals the freedom to choose. Number 3. Augustus Caesar. Julius Caesar may be more well known, but his heir, Augustus Caesar, was the richest of all. He is the only confirmed trillionaire in history, owning a fifth of the wealth of the Roman Empire, which accounted for 30% of the world's GDP at the time. Most experts agree that his fortune hovered at around $4.3 trillion. On top of the wealth, his position as emperor brought much of his fortune from inheritance. He inherited 75% of Julius Caesar's wealth, and, well, no one knows exactly how much that is. Julius was known to have left 300 sesterces to every Roman citizen upon his death. At the time, 300 sesterces were worth months' wages, and that barely put a dent in his finances. But it wasn't just Julius who gave Augustus money. Several wealthy families were known to leave part of their estate to the emperor, hoping it would bring political safety to their children. During his 40-year affluent reign, he doubled the size of the Roman Empire. He founded standing army police and fire services, a courier system, and roads, effectively bringing Rome into the modern age. Number 2. Shenzong of Song. The runner-up for the most wealthy person in history is also one of the most mysterious people, Shenzong of Song. He reigned from 1067 to 1085. Lucky for him, this was during an extremely affluent and prosperous era of China. There were the top makers of bronze in the world, and farmers were granted the rights to own their property. The production of rice skyrocketed and became a staple of the economy, making them a commercial superpower. In addition to this, gunpowder, printing, and magnetic compasses were invented during this time. The Shenzong dynasty was able to create the world's first paper money and also form the world's first navy. The navy allowed them to defend their trade routes, which protected their products. With all this innovation, Emperor Shenzong controlled 30% of the global GDP, and with a highly centralized economy, Shenzong had immense control over the money. His wealth had been called immeasurable. Experts know it is trillions of dollars, but it's hard to pin down an exact amount. Number 1. Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa controlled a fortune so vast, so extravagant, that modern historians cannot even fathom how much he truly had. He rode across Africa on zebras carrying thousands of pounds of gold, and that was the equivalent of spare change to him. He became the ruler of the Mali Empire in the early 1300s. During Mansa Musa's rule, Europe was struggling immensely. Things like the Great Famine, Civil War, and a fun little thing called Black Death brought all the kingdoms of Europe to their knees. He was the world's largest producer of gold and salt, which were the two most important products at the time. Mansa Musa conquered 24 cities and their surrounding districts within the first few years of his rule, yet he remained distant from the rest of the world. Even in Egypt, in the Middle East, little was known about him. But all that changed when Mansa Musa began his journey to Mecca. As a Muslim, the pilgrimage was an important part of his religion, but when you have that kind of money, you don't exactly have to rough it. And that brings us to the end of the video. See you next time.